All right, welcome everybody. Hey, it's Sam. It is great to have you on the training today. Just getting a couple things situated here. Hey, if you can hear okay and you can see that screen, it should be my goofy face there with a podcast for newbies. Can you just type into the question box A-OK, yes, great, awesome. Okay, cool. All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, welcome everybody. We're going to get started in just a second. I will not waste 1 second of your time. We're going to talk about podcasting, and it's going to be real casual, real laid back, so nothing too formal. And that's just, I guess it's the way I like to teach. I've tried the formal slide-by-slide technique that other people are really good at, and I've tried the, we're hanging out at Starbucks having a conversation type of webinar, and I like those better. That's just more who I am. So I hope you can appreciate that as well. And let's get rocking and rolling. Okay, we're right here at the top of the hour. It's 11:59 Eastern Time here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I hope the sun is shining wherever you are, and you're here to learn about podcasting, and that is great because this is what I started doing. Oh man, what was it? 2005, 2000, right around there when I quit my job, and I really wanted to build a brand, but I didn't know what to do. I just, I knew I wanted to be a speaker. I knew I wanted to get a message out there, but good luck, right? I mean, if you Google, at the time, I didn't know what else to Google, and Google really wasn't Google back in 2005. It was more like this funny name of a search engine, and I typed in motivational speaker, and good luck. I mean, how am I ever going to compete if I want to get a message out there? I don't have a website. I didn't have anything, but I found this thing called podcasting, and it's really cool. And I want to share that story with you today. And if all you get out of this training is you're inspired now to go share your message, that's great. Then that's exactly what it was for. If you want to take it to even a higher level and really be one of the few thought leaders out there that have a really great podcast, then that's great too. However you want to take it. But what I'd like to do is hopefully inspire you to get your message out there, and you don't got to spend a lot of money to do it. All right, so let's rock and roll. What you're about to learn: what is a podcast, and why has podcasting exploded onto the scene, and why everyone should have their own show on iTunes. There's absolutely no charge for it. It's free. How you can start your own show today with zero experience. How you will build the most loyal following ever, and I both hands in the air, I guarantee that's the case. Your podcast listeners will be loyal. I don't have a more loyal following than I do on my podcast. I nowhere else. Not on Facebook, not on YouTube, not on my email, nothing. More loyal than my podcast listeners. How you're going to build, get your first 1,000 listeners in less than 30 days. Heck, you could get that in your first week if you really wanted to. And a little bit more. Okay, so let's just dive into it. This is the vision. When I share this presentation, a little bit about what you're seeing today, if you've seen me speak on stage, then you've seen some of these slides might look familiar, because this is what I kind of equate podcasting to as fans and prospects and customers. It's like holding a glass underneath of Niagara Falls. I mean, there's really that much out there. I mean, if you just take a look at iTunes, and if you have a Mac, then iTunes is built into your Mac. If you have Windows, you just simply go to itunes.com and you can download it there onto your PC. But podcasting has become so mainstream, and I'll share some really great slides with you just to prove that as well. But I mean, one of the secret sauces, like for example, if you type, this is a search bar up here. You see this? I just type success into the search bar there. And what comes up is everything that could possibly have to do with that keyword, success. So here's podcasts and books and audiobooks and albums and songs and apps and all this good stuff. But if you were to search for a podcast about success, this would probably be a good one. Success Talks, Success Insider, Secret to Success. And then you keep moving and there's the Everyday Saturday Podcast. How does this come up? Well, if you take a look at iTunes, iTunes is like a search engine. It's no different than Google and Yahoo and Bing. It doesn't host any podcast. iTunes doesn't host anything. What they do is they distribute the content, just like Google would send you to a website that was relevant. This sends you to podcasts that are relevant. Why is mine relevant? Because in the title of my show, and this is kind of one of the ninja things that you will do with a podcast, However you want to be found inside the iTunes search engine, put that in the title of your show. My title happens to be Motivation, Inspiration, and Success with Entrepreneur Coach Sam Crowley. So no different than a website, the way you title your podcast is critical in how you're found, at least one of the critical components, because again, if you were to type in motivation into the search bar on iTunes, then up would come podcasts that have to do with motivation. And I'm guessing, I haven't done this in a while, but there's my show right there. And the same thing with inspiration, same thing with entrepreneur. My show is probably going to come up, and yours will too, based on the different, based on really what you put in your title and a few other things, but boy, is that important. So if you haven't launched your podcast yet, one of the most critical things you're going to do, besides the album art and besides the actual content of your show and all that good stuff, what's your title? Okay? And if you take a look, when you go back to the podcasting homepage, and I'm getting a little bit ahead, but like I said, it's super casual. If you were to ask me, and we're sitting having a cup of coffee, Sam, tell me about podcasting. This is exactly what I would show you to get you excited about it. There's 13 different categories. There's art, business, comedy, education, games and hobbies, government and organization. There's health, okay? Kids and family, music, news and politics, religion and spirituality, science and medicine, society and culture, sports and recreation, technology, TV and film. And I will also give you kind of a word of caution. Your show may not fit neatly into any of these. There's only 13 of them, and there's a billion podcasts on iTunes. So, if you take a look, it's going to be somewhere in here. Mine is under the business category, actually. And even when you look under business and you scroll down, you've got your new and noteworthy section, which iTunes, once your show goes live, there's a really good possibility if you do it the right way, there's critical components and how you get found in the new and noteworthy section. There's no charge to be in here, okay? This is for the newer podcasts and podcasts that are kind of cutting edge. And in your first 8 weeks, iTunes would gladly promote you inside of the new and noteworthy section, and there's no charge. You couldn't pay iTunes even if you wanted to. They would just happily do that for you. There's the What's Hot section inside here, so you can see all of the different podcasts that are hot right now. There's my show in the What's Hot section. And look at all these great podcasters. A lot of these people look familiar to you, okay? You look at Dave Ramsey and Pat Flynn and Michael Hyatt and Zig Ziglar and all these people. If you look under business, though, what I was going to show you is you've got also business news, careers, investing, management and marketing, and shopping. So it's not just business. If you look under the career section, you'll find my show. It's probably under What's Hot. There it is. Why would I be under career? I'm the anti-career guy. Well, like I said, your show isn't going to fit perfectly inside of iTunes unless you have a business podcast. It's strictly about business and careers. Don't worry about it. Why? Because they're going to find you, again, based on what they're typing. I can't tell you how many emails I get. I get emails every single day from people saying, Sam, I just typed motivation into iTunes, found your show, love it, subscribe. And here's another thing we'll talk about is your statistics. There's how many downloads I've had over the past 18 months or so. It's a running total, month by month, about 3.5 million downloads of my show. I haven't paid a penny for those downloads, and probably close to, I keep butchering the number. I think it's 12 million, could be 11 million, but let's just call it 10 million. All right, 10 million downloads. Can you believe that just some ex-stuttering college dropout has had a show downloaded even 10 times, let alone 10 million times? And that's why I want to just get you excited today about some of these things that you're going to see, because to be on here on the What's Hot section, if maybe you already have a show, and maybe you jumped on the webinar today because you want to learn how to market it better, or you want to learn how to really ramp it up now. Maybe you've done, like a lot of people, you take a training or you launch your show about how to do a podcast and you kind of let it sit on the shelf for a little bit. Well, hopefully this training gets you to get back up and get in the game, because it's really awesome. Let's go back to the presentation real quick. I'll be jumping in and out of iTunes and different types of platforms just to show you what's possible, but it really is like holding a glass of water underneath of Niagara Falls, okay? Every month, 57 million Americans listen to a podcast, and it's not just one, it's usually more than one. In just the past month, back in 2016, if you take a look, 21% of people are listening to a podcast every month. Look, compare that to Spotify and Twitter. These numbers might surprise you that when you look at how many people listen to a podcast compared to 13% listen to Spotify, and it's the same percentage of people that use Twitter. Isn't that amazing? Like, you would think Twitter would be dwarfing these numbers. Not the case. Not the case. This is an important slide because when I was going through some really tough times in my life back in 2004 and 2005, I was kind of at a crossroads where I wanted to know what my purpose was in life, what God's plan was for my life. I was just so frustrated. I was making money. Money wasn't the problem. Money's never been the problem, really. It was in my insatiable desire to not be average. And so I listened to CDs in my car all the time. And you probably know these three gentlemen: Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Tony Robbins. And I can finally check off the box, that last one on the right, being in Toronto a couple months ago. I have finally shared the stage or spoken at the same event as all three of those individuals, which is just ridiculous on so many levels. Don't consider myself in the same league as those guys, but I consider them as mentors of mine. I will gladly speak on stages with them, but I don't compare myself. But here's the thing. I listen to these CDs every day, and I thought, geez, I wonder if there's a way that I can speak. I don't know how to create a CD. I wasn't thinking about that. But again, podcasting kind of came back because it was a little bit newer concept. It was a lower barrier to entry, and I thought that was really cool. So I thought maybe I could do that. If you don't know who I am, like I said, I've shared the stage with these individuals there: Les Brown, Janet Atwood, Robert Kiyosaki. That Robert Kiyosaki photo is pretty cool. That's from LA 2 years ago, and I spoke at an event. We shared the stage together there. And the very first entrepreneurial book I ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 2002. Isn't that crazy? It took till I was 34 years old to read an entrepreneurial book. That's ridiculous. But hey, some people are late bloomers. Maybe you haven't read your first entrepreneurial book, and maybe you're 42. I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't matter when you start. All that matters is that you actually get started. And it's been a really cool journey. I've written books, How to Sell from Stage as a Speaker, Every Day is Saturday, and my latest book called One More Breath, chronicling the journey of my daughter Susan, who was born at 1 pound, spent 221 days in Children's Hospital, and came home on a ventilator a couple years ago. And she's doing amazing. She'll be 3 years old in August. So those of you that have been following her journey and praying for her, imagine that 3 years ago she was born. So that's that. I've got the longest running motivational podcast on iTunes, over 10 million downloads, top 100 business podcast. I've trained over 2,200 podcasters on how to explode their message in over 100 countries. And it all began in the middle of a bankruptcy. Think about that. Look at that. In the middle of a bankruptcy, I launched a business called Every Day is Saturday. Who would have the audacity? Who'd be stupid enough to do something like that? Well, I was. And I hope that speaks to you a little bit as well. Because I don't know if you call it stupid. I don't know if you call it bravado. I don't know if you just say it's bold. I don't know. All I know is, as I keep saying over and over again, I don't want to be average. I can't even imagine. You can call me anything in the world. And trust me, I've been called a lot of different things. That's what happens when you step out and be a little bold. But just don't call me average. The best reviews I get on iTunes, thank God most of them are 5-star, but even the 1-star, I love it because it means I'm rattling some emotion in somebody. I hate 3 and 4-star reviews. I hate them. It was good. It was okay. The best review I ever got was that there's a gentleman named Mark in the UK. I use this all the time in training. He left a 1-star review when I first got started 8 years ago and said, "There's something terribly wrong with this man." And that's the greatest review I've ever gotten because it's awesome. On so many levels, that is awesome. And then, of course, all the 5-star reviews are great too. I would love a 1-star or a 5-star. I don't want any 3 or 4-star reviews because then I haven't really invoked any emotion in anybody, So it's no fun being average. So I launched this with no money, no website, no friends, just, was done. And it was kind of like my last, it was kind of like my last at bat, I think, in the entrepreneurial journey. Can you relate to that? Have you ever felt like you had a last at bat and then you connected really good? Or maybe you had a last at bat and you struck out and you figured out real quick, that wasn't my last at bat. I got another one in me. And then you struck out again. You're like, I got another one in me. If you keep striking out right now, just understand that when you're in the game, striking out is only bad when it's your last at bat. And that's what I really feel is that striking out is only bad when it's your last at bat. Striking out in the first inning as long as you always equate your entrepreneurial journey as being in the first inning. And by the way, for everybody that's in Australia, the UK, and all around, those are baseball metaphors, so I apologize. I wish I had a good soccer metaphor. I don't. But anyway, if it's your last at bat, it's not. You might think that, but it's not. It's just not. I can tell you that. I've always thought, as recently as 6 months ago, that it was going to be my last at bat at something, and it just wasn't. There's my why. That's my girls. That's Madeline, my 16-year-old. That's Paigey. She's 11. Laura, 12. She just got her braces off, by the way. Thank the Lord. There's $7,000 that I don't have to pay for anymore. And our baby Susan. There she is right there. Breathes through a trach tube, and God willing, that'll be out in the next 6 months, and she'll be like every other kid on the playground. So that's why I quit my job 10 years ago. That's why I do what I do. That's why I do what I do. And you probably have a very powerful why in your life as well. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's something as powerful that really moves you to get moving. There's our daughter. They're born at 1 pound, as I mentioned 3 years ago. We spent 221 days in the NICU. It's funny. I see myself smiling in these photos. A lot of pain, man. A lot of pain. I was overweight. I had a big fat gut right there. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping well. But we hit it well, And I only talked about the storms really after they were gone. I didn't really talk about going through them because I believe what Jim Rohn said. Don't tell the marketplace about your problems. Tell your doctor about your problems. Tell the marketplace about where you're going. But as I look back, man, it seems like 10 years ago. And there she was opening her eyes for the very first time. Typically, this happens inside the wound at 26 weeks. We got a chance to see it happen outside the wound. And there she is now, man. Life's beautiful, So it always gets better. It just, this photo, when I see this photo, it tells me it always gets better. Always. Okay? So what's a podcast? It's kind of it's a hybrid between, back in the day, it got named between the old iPod, remember? Oh, you got an iPod. Oh, you're rich. It's great. It holds all these songs. And a broadcast. And you got the term podcast, And podcasting is to radio what Netflix is to television. Think about it. Netflix is huge. You probably have a Netflix account or a Hulu account or something where you can watch on-demand television. Well, this is really like on-demand radio. This is on-demand. Any one of these podcasts that you see here, you might subscribe to a show. You just click on any one of these and you just start listening. If you wanted to listen to my show, for example, you would click right here. Boom.
Welcome to the Everyday is Saturday podcast. The #1 motivation.
You can stop it. Up here, this one's called It's Better to Create Than Maintain, or It's Much More Fun to Create Than Maintain. There's the title scrolling. How does that happen, by the way? How does all of this happen? Well, I use an open office recording studio called Audacity. You can download this from the internet. Heck, you could do it right now. Take about 2 minutes to do. And all you would do is hit that record button. Hey, it's Sam Crowley. I want to welcome you to the #1 motivational podcast on the planet, the Everyday is Saturday show. You'd hit stop and boom, hit that record button. Hey, it's Sam Crowley. I want to welcome you to the #1 motivational podcast on the planet, the Everyday is Saturday show. Let's say I wanted to take this first part out where I started talking. I would just highlight that, cut it out, boom. Hey, it's Sam Crowley. I want to bring in some intro music. I'll go find my intro music that's saved here. And again, this is all in open office software. It's all free to download. There's no charge. Intro. Bring in the intro music. Slide the body of my show over like that. And you're going to hear what you just heard. But this is my podcast.
Welcome to the Everyday is Saturday podcast. The #1 motivation show on the planet.
No more Mondays for you. It's time to make every day Saturday. Boom!
This is the podcast where we help you to accept who you are, not where you are.
Okay, so you got that. That's my whole intro. It goes about 56 seconds or so. And then when that's over, it goes right into the show. Hey, it's Sam Crowley. I want to welcome you to the #1 motivational podcast on the planet, the Everyday is Saturday show. And I would bring in my extro, that is an audio file here, or outro, however you phrase it. And that would go at the end of the podcast. I would shift that, move it here. And there you go. So when the show's over, you're going to hear the extra. And it's kind of whatever you want to call it. Some people call it a jingle, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Line it up. I'm done talking. Show's over. Goodbye, everybody. Saturday show.
Thank you for listening to the Every Day is Saturday podcast. Still fired up and want more of Sam Crowley? Be sure to visit everydayissaturday.com and don't forget to follow Sam on Twitter @Sam Crowley. Let Sam know you're listening. Use hashtag #EverydayIsSaturday.
I'm done. All I would do is export that audio as an MP3 file, title it, and we're out the door. And next thing you know, in a couple of hours, it's right here. Guys, this is what I've been doing for 12 years. Okay, this is exactly the process. I'll be doing it right after this training. I'm going to record a podcast, and I love it. I do it right here, right in my home. Don't leave. I don't have some trumped up studio someplace with all these bells and whistles. Heck, I'm recording this right now on just a $50. What is this called? Blue Yeti from Best Buy. I just got it a couple hours ago. Hooked it up to my USB port because my other one died. And that's it. So what I wanted to talk, there's just no reason to go out there and buy expensive equipment. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's the equivalent of saying, I'm going to go beat Tiger Woods in a round of golf because I've got more expensive golf clubs than he does. It doesn't work that way. Okay? It's called a blue snowball. I just remembered, blue snowball. It just doesn't work that way. And by the way, what kind of equipment should you have? That's a really good question. Let me take a look. I'm going to show you exactly what you should buy to record, because so many people make this mistake. Buying expensive. Some people think, if I have a great microphone, I'm going to have a great podcast. No, you could have a great microphone and a crappy message, and you're going to have a crappy podcast. It just doesn't work that way, having expensive equipment. Buy this. This is the only microphone. If you have not launched a podcast yet, or you haven't done one in a while, you're crazy to go out and buy expensive equipment. You can start with a Logitech ClearChat Comfort USB headset. It's $24.95 on Amazon. Done. Buy that. If you want to get a little bit more up the ladder, then you can go to a Blue Yeti, okay? And this is a better sound quality microphone. You can get them here for $129. So you've gone from $25 to $129, but the quality of your microphone has gotten considerably better, all right? And then the one I use in my studio to record mine is a Heil PR40, okay? And this is a great mic. It has a USB adapter as well, or you can plug it into a mixer. But this is this is a radio station type quality microphone here, and this is what I use in my show every day. I wouldn't spend $327 though until you actually know this is something that you want to do. It's just nuts to go out there, and I'm telling you, why am I harping so much on not spending money? Because I've seen everybody do it. They join these podcast groups on Facebook. They go out and put together a great studio. They spend all this money on equipment, and then they give it up in about 6 months. And ironically, most of the podcasts on iTunes are just terrible. They're just god-awful because people abandon them, or they don't produce them well, or they just got a bad message, and they're not very good at all. And when I teach my students, I teach them all about the message first and the equipment and all the bells and whistles second, okay? It's an online radio show people voluntarily subscribe to, a podcast. And how do they do that? I'll show you. I've got the slides, but I'll just take you in here. If you wanted to subscribe to my show, you're just going to hit that button, subscribe. That's it. That's all you do. I don't know you subscribed. There's no way of me knowing. There's nobody tracks subscriptions. I mean, iTunes probably does, but they don't ever share that information. What you are able to track, you're able to track the amount of downloads, this number right here. You're able to track the amount of downloads that come from your show. I use a company called Blueberry, Blubrry. And if you use Blueberry, if you don't have a podcast, you can use, my promo code is Saturday when you go to sign up, and you'll get your first month for free. I use Blueberry because the customer service is awesome. They're great with my students. They always are first class operation. And they also give you some really great insight. About 2.7 million of my downloads come from mobile application. That's almost 80%. Meaning what? Meaning the iPhone, the smartphone. People are on the run. They are not sitting at their computer on my website downloading my show. From a web browser, just look, 118,000 out of 3.5 million. That's not very many at all, okay? Look at that, 2.7 million. So understand, people are on the go. Where are they listening to your show? When you record a podcast, how are people listening? Well, look, they're listening at the gym. They're listening when they walk their dog. They're listening in the car. 95% of the people in the USA commute 30 minutes or less to a job. I have a podcast called Every Day is Saturday, teaching people how to really monetize their passion and go through massive transition. I'm going to keep my show less than 30 minutes because my demographic either goes to a job every day or they're on the run. And my shows, if you take a look, are typically 10 to 12 minutes long. This one was 26, 18, 17, 22. But for the most part, I keep them in that 10 to 12 minutes. Unless I just get really crazy and just don't stop talking like this one here. It's much more fun. But on this one here, it's funny. I just got on a roll. I got so fired up about creating, getting back into the creating mode that I couldn't stop myself. And I went for 26 minutes. But hey, it's still a good show. But I would keep your show, the average podcast listener listens between 18 to 22 minutes. 18 to 22 minutes, okay? So that would include maybe somebody listens to Tim Ferriss who goes for an hour and a half, and somebody listens to a motivational minute that goes 60 seconds. And you throw out the high and you throw out the low, and somewhere in that 18 to 22 minute range is the sweet spot. And it doesn't mean that your show should be 18 to 20 minutes. You can make your show an hour long, but just understand most people are probably going to pause it and come back, stop it and come back, because it's that on-demand radio station. They can do whatever they want. They can, just like you would do on your Netflix shows. You can also see where, what different platforms. Like I said, the iPhone, iPad is where most of my downloads come from. Geography. This will give you an idea in the world. No surprise, most of my shows are downloaded from the US, Canada, Australia, down United Kingdom, New Zealand, and then a whole host of others in over 100 countries. Okay, this is why you want to go with a podcast host that can give you all of this information. So, yeah, get going. And how often should you record? A lot of people ask that question. Sam, how often should I record a podcast? Every day, twice a week? If it were me, and since you asked me the question, I'd say do one every day for the first couple months. That's 60 shows. That's 50 to 60 shows. Why would you do that many? Well, repetition decreases resistance. The more shows you do, the more comfortable you feel with your message. My show's changed 100 times in the last 10 years as far as what I talk about, how I talk, different areas that I focus on and things like that. And yours will too. And that's great. Look how much the internet changes just in 6 months. So don't be afraid of getting out there and putting your message out there. And look, you're gonna record your first show if you haven't yet, and you're gonna say, "Oh, that's terrible. I hate my voice. I hate the way it sounds." Everybody does that. I did it. I mean, good God, I listened to my first podcast and I had to plug my ears. It was horrible. But that's not up to you to decide. It's up to your audience to decide. Let them decide if they enjoy your message, and they will. It's crazy, I know, because you're going to think, who wants to listen? Well, every single one of my coaching clients inevitably emails me and says, Sam, I can't believe I got an email from somebody in New Zealand. I live in Chicago. I don't even know how that happens, and they're like, I can't believe it, blah, 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 blah. And, hey, it happens. Don't ask me. That's the power of the iTunes platform. So you get your show out there and you just watch the downloads come in. All right. Don't question it. Don't try to analyze it. Just understand that these downloads are coming in fast and furious every single day. Okay. And that's how people are going to find you, by typing it into iTunes. Here's the percentage of people that have ever listened to a podcast. Look at, when I first got started, it was around 11% of the population. All right. Ever listened to a podcast. Now it's up to 36%. It's crossing into mainstream, Average of 5 podcasts listened to per week. So somebody may subscribe to your show and 4 other ones just like it. Or somebody may subscribe to a cooking podcast and then a lawn care podcast, a swimming podcast. I'm telling you, I don't know a better way to build a relationship with people. I've tried all of it. And this is the one I keep coming back to, as well as my students who just love it. Think of it as a way do you have a passion project? I mean, do you have something that you're just in the car? Are you like me? Do you talk to yourself a lot? like when you're in your car, if you had a stage to speak on or you had an audience to talk to, you think, I would talk about this message. This is what I would talk about. That's what your podcast should be about, you know? It's exactly what it should be about. And so many people go into podcasting thinking, I don't care if I ever make any money. This is my passion project. All right. This is what I'm passionate about. I just want to get this out. I just want to get the music out from inside of me. Most of the people, ironically enough, start with that in mind. Most of the downloads, as we talked about, these are the red here represents how people listen, computer versus smartphone, portable device. I showed you in 2016, 64%. I showed you mine is 78% of the people listen on a portable device, and that's only growing. iTunes helps you get discovered in your first 8 weeks. I showed you the new and noteworthy section, okay, in there. There's over 1 billion podcast subscribers in iTunes alone. 1 billion. And people still don't know about it. The downloads, we talked about that. Who should have a podcast? It's a funny slide that I share this from stage. Men, women, anyone who can fog a mirror. If you talk, you better have a podcast. Examples, entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Do you own an online business? Maybe you're a consultant, an information marketer, speaker, author, coach, real estate sales and investing. I mean, there's literally no competition. You could type anything into this search bar right here in iTunes, and you might find a few people, but it runs out really fast, as opposed if you type this into Google, for example. Let me just think of something that would be popular in Google. Write a book. How to write a book. How to write a book. Because a lot of people want to do that. That's kind of a bucket list things for a lot of people. Let's see what comes up in iTunes here. Self-publishing school. Writing for children. Don't know what this is. It doesn't say learn how to. I can't really see what it says. Loyal books. That's it, guys. I don't know. Writing on block. Brain burps about books. The author hangout. So let's take a look at the number one podcast that comes up. Just launched this month. Okay. 5 shows. 262 reviews already. 5 shows. Writing for children. That's a really nichified thing, right? Real specialist. That's good. They got a lot of shows talking about... Look at how specialized that is. Do you want to learn how to write for children? The Institute of Children's Literature has taught hundreds and thousands of aspiring writers. Look at that. Let's switch gears a little bit. Maybe you're vegan, or you want to do a vegan podcast. Who's out there? What's your competition? I wouldn't even look at this, what's your competition? I would just look at it, how are other people putting a podcast together? The No Meat Athlete, Vegan Post, Food for Thought, Vegan Radio Feed, Plant-Based Conversations. There's my buddy Thomas Tadlock. Thomas Tadlock actually took my class a few years ago. This guy is the real deal, man. He's the vegan bodybuilder, and he also runs the Vegan Body Revolution, and he took my podcasting course in 2012. He has crushed it, man. Big Faye Vegan Radio, the Reluctant Vegan Podcast. So just take a look at these shows and see how they're set up. What do they talk about? And these are people that are ranked. Look at this person's in the top 10 for a very, it's a pretty cool keyword, vegan. That's all I typed in was vegan. They appeared in the top 10 in iTunes, and they haven't recorded a show since March. They've only done 1 podcast this entire calendar year. They did a handful in 2016, and that's it. That's it. Do you think your show would catch on in this category if you did one 3 times a week, for example? Yes, it would. And these topics go on and on and on. Real estate investing, social media, speaking, training, entrepreneur, coach, consultant. If you're a coach and a consultant and you want to sell more of that, you absolutely should have a podcast. That's how I monetize my show. I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Whoops, I dropped my microphone. I got so excited, I knocked my microphone over. You should absolutely have a podcast, okay? Because that's how you're going to monetize it, is selling your coaching and consulting. For every 900 blogs online, there's only 1 podcast. And if you're female, that number is 3,500 to 1. Let me ask you a question. What was the last blog post you read and who was the author? Do you even remember that? And compare that to the last voice you heard on a podcast or some audio that you're listening to. You absolutely will remember who that person is. That's why podcasting is that powerful. These are different ways to make money. Again, do I earn money? Yes. I've earned over $1 million with my podcast. Do I talk about money first? No. Why? Because I want you to get passionate about it first. It's like speaking. When I train speakers, I tell them expect to speak free for the first 50 times you do it. And then if you really want to do it after that, you'll make a ton of money. But until you develop a passion for it, you're never going to earn income. And that's the way it is with everything. But when you do, and I don't say if you, because you will earn income with your podcast, you're going to have advertisers and sponsors that are going to want to piggyback on your show. Wow, you're getting 10,000 downloads an episode. Great. Can we pay you $1,000 a month? Can we pay you $5,000 a month? I think I've got a slide. Do I not? With John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire, amazing podcaster. Last 2 months, $123,000 in sponsorship revenue. Pat Flynn, same thing, $14,500 as smart passive income. These two are really great in their niche. And you know what? I know John Lee Dumas just started podcasting a few years ago. He was kind of not late to the game because people are still joining, but it goes to show that anybody can start right now. 3,500 to 1. That's what I wanted to show you. Advertisers and sponsors, affiliate sales, promote somebody's product on your show, get paid to do it. Joint ventures. That's what I did with Les Brown. I got a photo of Les here. He gave a glowing testimonial of a joint venture we did when I promoted Les on one of my podcasts and crushed it because we sold his product, his live event. Coaching and speaking. It's funny. I've told this story if you've plugged into my show for any length of time. You've heard the $25,000 keynote story before. And if you haven't, I'm going to share with you literally in 20 seconds because I don't want to bore you and I don't want to brag. But back in 2008, I got booked to speak at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and it was a $25,000 keynote. And the other speaker was Lee Brower from The Secret. Now, mind you, a few months before that, I was shoveling sidewalks in my hometown of Bradford, PA at my rental properties, and I was making a couple grand a month. And the $25,000 payday came in, and then I sold $150,000 of coaching. So in the span of 10 days, my income went from $2,000 to $175,000, give or take a few bucks. My life changed forever. You can imagine. All of that. How did it happen, though? Where did that lead come from? It came from my show. The event promoter was searching iTunes for motivational speakers, found my show, booked me to speak. I didn't have to have a speaker kit. I didn't even have a speaker kit. I didn't have an agreement for anybody to sign, like, I'll have my people send over my agreement. No. They said, hey, yeah, that's my show. That's who I am. And I'd love to deliver that same electric message to your audience. Great. We'll see you then. So many people overthink, life and business and money. And you don't have to. Get your message out there. So if you do coaching, consulting, get yourself on iTunes, would you please? If you really are a speaker, if this is where you're going to draw your line and you're going to say, I want to be a speaker, please start podcasting. And if you gave it up for a little while, get back in the game and do it, because that's how people are going to find you. And at the very least, it's going to turn into your virtual media kit. Speaking of brand recall, 90% of the people who listen to a podcast said that they listen to the ads. So that's how you can monetize, having advertisers. 90% actually listen to the ad. 80% were able to name at least one brand that was advertised on an episode. 67% were able to name a specific product or feature, and 51% were somewhat or more likely to buy from that brand. Advertisers love this stuff, guys. 64% of listeners bought a product they heard on a podcast. 90% of the people of advertisers consider their podcast advertising a success. So XYZ Corporation gives you money, and 9 out of 10 times they're going to say, I loved it. Can I pay you more? Can we do business together longer? These are LegalZoom, FreshBooks, Entrepreneurial.com. You've heard them, right? GNC Fitness. You've heard the sponsors, Mattress People. 50% of podcast audience has a college degree or higher. So these people that are listening to you, yeah, they kind of know what they're looking for. I monetized my show. You may have seen this show. This was, 2015. This is just a random slide I picked out. These two podcasts, I said, I'm looking for the perfect client. That's it. I did an entire podcast on who I'm looking for, the perfect client, who they are, what they think like. how much money they have, all that stuff. And then I did a follow-up one where I hit a deer in my car. And I talked about looking for that perfect client as well. And I simply said this, as you see right here, I'm searching for the perfect client. I said, send me an email, sam@everydayissaturday.com. 2 clients did, $7,500 each. That's 15 grand. And all it took me was 13 minutes and 14 minutes, less than a half hour of speaking. Now, you may say, Sam, you got all these followers. I get it. Okay, I'll give you that. But if you took 10% of that number, $750, that'd still be a great payday. You know what I mean? For speaking and doing what it is that you love to do. Now I send traffic. Another way I monetize is I sell my momentum code. This is a pretty cool diagram, actually. I send everybody to ediswebinar.com. And if you haven't been there before, go there. Watch the webinar. It's a really cool webinar. It's recorded, and I talk a lot about the momentum code, where if you have a big vision, you're going to take massive action, you're going to get massive results, and you're going to have huge belief. Wouldn't you agree with that? Big vision plus big action equals big results, and it really becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, the opposite is true as well. If you have a small vision, you're just going to take a little action. I don't know if this whole speaking thing is right. I'll give it a shot. You ever heard anybody say that? You've probably been guilty of that before as well. I know I have. I'll give it a shot. Well, little action leads to little results. That leads to just a little bit more belief than you had before you started. And it just keeps going around and around and around in a circle. And that's the momentum code that I teach. And this is where I send people from my my podcast to my momentum code. It's the landing page. They get a free ebook. They opt in. I build my email list, and that's what they get. So if you go to ediswebinar.com, you can go to everydaysaturday.com/momentum if you want the ebook. But this is what I teach. This is the kind of stuff that I teach, and I drive traffic to my own sales funnel through my podcast. So going all the way back, let's review what we got here, okay? Let me show you this. I want to just show you this one slide too as well. How does all of this work? If you go all the way back, you've got you speaking into this open source right here, okay? Audacity. That's it, just talking, recording your voice. You create an MP3 file. You've got a hosting platform where you upload that MP3 file, and iTunes just simply takes that feed from the hosting, and that's it. I wish it was more complicated. It's not. It's just not. So your show will be here, okay? Let me open it up for questions. See if anybody has any questions about anything I've covered so far. What if you want to interview someone? How do you go about doing that? Great question. Mary has a question. What about an interview? Well, any interview that I do for my show, which is limited, I don't do a lot of interviews, but any ones I do in Skype. So I will call somebody on Skype, and then I will record it using Ecamm Call Recorder, which is this guy here. Let me... Call recorder for Skype. It's $29.95 US, and what happens is it saves it as an MP4 file, and then you see this thing here, convert to MP3. This is part of Ecamm. When you purchase their software, they give you this. You drag your Skype movie file, because remember, it's going to record your call. So Mary, to answer your question, you could call me. You record the call using Ecamm. It records it as a MP4 file, a movie file. You drag that into here, and it converts it to an MP3 file, and you're done. Then what do you do with that MP3 file that you did? You go right back to Audacity. You click File, Import, and you bring that audio into Audacity, and you edit it, just like I showed you earlier when you're editing audios, and that's one way to do it. You could also use Free Conference Call. Free Conference Call is free. The quality is not as great as Ecamm and other software, because free is never usually as good as what you pay for it. But hey, you both dial into a conference line. Freeconferencecall.com saves that as an MP3 file. And what do you do with that MP3 file? You bring it right back into Audacity. You click File, Import, Audio. You bring it in and you edit that file. And there's your interview. And that goes onto iTunes. It's as simple as that. Great question. That's a really good question about If you want to interview someone, look, you could interview somebody across the world and it would sound like you're right next door. Okay. Would GarageBand work as well as Audacity? Sure. Jonathan has a question. Would GarageBand work? Yeah. Your goal is to create an MP3 file. That's it. The reason I train on Audacity is because it's open source. So if you have a PC or a Mac, it doesn't matter. Your goal, though, heck, I've recorded, if you guys listen to my show, we just moved recently. We moved homes, and my studio just, it doesn't even exist right now. So I recorded a bunch of shows just using my smartphone. I just talked into the memos section of my smartphone, created an audio file, and that's what went on iTunes. And surprisingly, I asked people, can you give me feedback? Does that sound worse or better? Or I know it didn't sound better because my studio sounds best, but does it sound really bad? I'm like, no, actually, it sounds pretty good. So don't overthink it. Your goal is to create an MP3 file. However you want to create that file is up to you. However, whatever is most comfortable for you. I use Audacity because I can train students and it's easy to use on both a Mac and on a PC. Okay? So a lot of people are like, hey, that's great, Sam. If podcasting is so powerful, why doesn't everybody have a podcast? It's a great question. Why wouldn't everybody have one? I mean, good Lord, the secret's out. It's a low barrier to entry. Millions of people are on there. There's 1 billion subscribers. I've proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt that it's an awesome platform. Why? Well, here's one. Tech issues. Oh, boy. You had me, Sam. Looks good. Sounds great. I'm not really a techie, though. This is kind of my kryptonite. Does anybody feel that way? Like, oh, boy, yeah, this all looks good, but I don't think I really know or feel comfortable how to connect all the dots. Heck, I think I can barely plug my microphone in. I hear you. That stops a lot of people. Life gets in the way. I get that. I received that message as the father of 4 girls. I know that, you wake up on a Wednesday and you think, this is going to be the day. I'm going to record 5 shows. And then one of the kids is sick, stay home from school, or the spouse has to stay home from work, or you stay home from work, and life gets in the way. Equipment doesn't work, computer breaks down, and then people say, well, that podcast is going to have to just go to the back of the line. Some people run out of things to speak about. They can't figure out, oh my gosh, what do I talk about? And I get that. That happens on occasion as well. People are like, Sam, what have I run out? You will never run out of things to talk about, by the way. Okay, there are so many. Just go follow thought leaders on Facebook. Go on their page and say, what are they talking about? Go on Twitter. I use Twitter as a gold mine. I mean, I'm a Twitterholic. You ever want to catch me? Catch me on Twitter at Sam Crowley. I am on there all the time on my phone. I'm a junkie. That's where I get all my news, from Twitter. I follow people that I want to follow, and that's how I get my news. But I never run out of things to talk about. I'll ask my listeners, hey, let me know what you want me to talk about. And they do. I mean, user-generated content is the best stuff. But not sure whether to do a solo show, co-host, interviews. What do I do? Oh, my God, so many choices. It's easier just to do nothing, okay? And that's another thing that really gets people. And don't let that happen to you. So what I did, some of you may have seen the email I sent out last week, okay? And I think I actually have a couple of students on here. So that's awesome. If you want to step up and say something about what we've done together so far, that's awesome. Here's the email I sent. What a difference. I was in Starbucks last week. And we talked about rushing our daughter to surgery, and now she's doing amazing. By the way, thank you so much to everybody for your thoughts, prayers. I love it. And I wrote, I stumbled onto something and wanted to share it with you. It might be of interest to you, and either way, it's, keep it in the back of your mind, blah, blah, blah. Last Friday, out of nowhere, I received 2 separate emails, one from Debbie in Tampa, the other one from Sarah in Toronto. They don't know each other, never met. They both reached out. Sam, can I pay you to set up my podcast? And I replied to their email, and I asked, what do you need help with? And they both said they want a first-class podcast that millions of people would download in iTunes, but they didn't want to get their hands dirty with all the setup stuff. They simply wanted to hit the record button and rock and roll. And podcasters, it's true. The thought of launching their show on iTunes is really great, but they get caught up in the tech stuff, or they launch their show and then they let it die on the vine a few months. They run out of things to talk about, as I said earlier, blah, blah, blah. And so I wrote, keep reading, okay? In any event, I just completed 2 separate 1-hour coaching calls, and Debbie and Sarah, and they loved it. And I was surprised because I usually teach in large groups like this, but then I started doing these GoToWebinars with individuals in the last 10 days, and I'll tell you what, I think I'm onto something here, not just for me, but for them. And this email, if you received it, then you see, I don't want to read an entire sales email. But here's what I wanted to offer on this training as well. I asked, hit reply back and let me know if you want to have 2 1-hour coaching calls with me, and I'll set up your entire podcast for you. Okay? And so many people responded. I mean, it was great. The response was great. And I gave them the offer, and a lot of people jumped on it. I probably had 7 or 8 people come on board in the first 24 to 48 hours. And I see Mitch here. Hey, Mitch. Cool. Great call. Mitch was one of the people. Mitch and his lovely wife, Nina, they were on. I did a one-on-one call with them yesterday. They responded, took advantage of the offer. He's typing in right now. Nina and I are recording our first show on Saturday. Hey, I can't think of a better day. So I sent this email out, and this really changed the trajectory of what I was going to do over the past few weeks. And that's what I want to share with you today, this exclusive offer. And I'm going to continue to take questions, okay? I enjoy working with people one-on-one. It's not that I don't enjoy group coaching. I like that. But I think as a internet marketer, we've gotten away from caring about people and working together one-on-one. And look, this isn't charity. It's not like I still work to feed my family and to run my business. So it's not like there's not a charge for it. But I believe if you're going to charge money for your product and service, you better do everything you can do to make sure that the people, if they want to be successful, they're going to be successful. Okay? And so that's why I started thinking, what if I trained people just one-on-one? Me and you on a webinar just like this. And my calendar booked up last week, and I didn't know what to think because I don't like exchanging hours for dollars. Just like you for every hour we exchange, we can't get that back. But what I found was, after getting off the phone with Mitch and Nina, for example, that are on the webinar right now, I found myself very fulfilled. Like, I could hear the light bulb going off on the other end. Wow, I get it. Wow, that's great, Sam. That's awesome. And I thought, I think I want to do more of this. This makes me feel good. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm adding more value than just having a group coaching or a membership site that you could go through on your own. And when you get stuck, you have to figure it out on your own. So the offer was and is right now today for you on this webinar. I'll set everything up for you. Everything. I'll set up your hosting. I'll set up your podcast. I'll put everything together for you. Your show's going to be on iTunes guaranteed. Remember, you have to submit your show to iTunes for approval. It's not guaranteed that it will be on there, but it will, because I'll make sure it will be. I'm also going to throw in 2 1-on-1 1-hour coaching calls with you and I, just like this right now. And I had Beth Scanlon. I don't know if Beth is on here. I don't know for sure. Beth is in Wisconsin. I just called Beth on her cell phone. She was having trouble logging into the webinar. I just called her. We talked for 40 minutes about podcasting, her kids. She lives on a farm. I didn't even know Beth Scanlon from Adam. I felt like I was talking to my sister after 40 minutes. I talked to Dr. V yesterday, Dr. Vogelman, Debbie, and it's been amazing. So I want you to send me an email if you're excited. And please, you have to understand. Send an email to sam@everydayissaturday.com. All right? But here's what I want you to do. I want you to be excited, and I want you to be teachable, and I want you to be coachable. And if that isn't you, no hard feelings. I'm not here to call anybody out by name. But I'm just getting more and more particular on who I want to work with, because I believe that when you are ready to crush your show, it's going to happen. It's going to happen just like it happened for me. But if you're not ready and you're like, let's see what Sam has to, that's not good. I appreciate you being on this webinar. I'm very grateful. Continue to follow the Everyday Saturday brand, but this particular offer is not for you. However, if now you are ready to finally put together an amazing show on iTunes, and you will allow me to connect all the dots for you. I'll take care of all the dirty work, the tech issues, all of that stuff. I'll set it all up, submit it to iTunes, and coach you. And it doesn't need to be just about podcasting. I was talking yesterday with Mitch and Nina about their sales funnel, about developing their own high-ticket program and things like that. We're gonna talk and we're gonna coach. And if after those 2 coaching calls you feel, you know what, Sam, I still don't get it. I don't feel like we're at a point now where I feel like I can go out on my own and do it. We're gonna keep coaching until you feel as though I over-delivered. And that's it. And look, if that's 1 person on today's webinar, then that's great. That's awesome. If it's 7, then that's fantastic as well. I'll clear my calendar, and when you're ready, come on board. Okay? So that's the offer. Send me an email. I want you to email me because that shows initiative. All right? I don't have a sales page. I don't have a link. I don't have anything along those lines. I don't want to beat the fish into the boat. I want you to take initiative because I know if you email me, then you're ready. You've taken initiative. You've thought about it. You're like, I'm ready to go. Great. Let's do it. It's that simple. We can schedule our first call for tomorrow, or we can do it at your convenience, whenever it is. All right. Let's get back into it. Questions. When you first started out, what other ways did you promote your podcast besides uploading to iTunes? This is a great question from Mitch again. This is a good question in the sense that whatever social media that I was really into at the time was where I was posting. But keep in mind, Facebook, this was 2005. So this wasn't, Facebook wasn't around, Twitter, anything like that. I was going into forums. Remember forums? God, forums seemed like so long ago, where you would go into a marketing forum and things like that. And I would ask people to review my show. Hey, leave me 5 stars. Leave me a 5-star review or listen to my show and just let me know you listen to it. Let me know what you like best about it. And I would post in a lot of different forums regularly to get that out there. If it were me now launching a show, I wouldn't overthink it. I would create a Facebook page, a Facebook group, either one. Drive traffic, buy advertising. I think paid advertising is great because you can get YouTube clicks and Facebook clicks for so inexpensively just to get likes to your page and fans to your page. And again, I wouldn't overthink it. Posting it on Twitter, whatever your favorite social media platforms are right now, as well as I think podcasting naturally dovetails to speaking. I really do. I would be speaking at my local Rotary, Kiwanis, library, all over the place, because once you understand that podcasting really is that stepping stone onto your speaking career, you're going to take the same message you've shared on iTunes and you're going to share that in front of a live audience. And you're not going to be intimidated at all. I don't care if there's 100 people in the room, 1,000, 10,000, or 10. You're not going to be intimidated because you've already shared this message on your podcast. Okay? So I would market your show everywhere you're currently marketing your business. Now everybody's got to know. Put it in the signature file of every email that you send. When you network and go to live events, tell people, download my show. I've got a podcast. Start referring to yourself as a podcaster. Put it on, if you have business cards, or put it on your website. I put on mine, speaker, trainer, podcaster, entrepreneur. That's pretty cool to be in that rare air. All right. Okay. So I hope that helps. That's where I would be. Okay, I would be putting it everywhere. Now I've added the word podcaster to what it is that I do. The title keyword piece you talked about in the beginning really helped me. I'll be updating. Hey, that's great. That's awesome, Jesse. Yeah, make sure, Jesse's talking about the title keyword. Make sure you put that in here, because this is how you're going to be found in the search. Think about how else would people find you? If they don't know you, most likely people are going to this search bar right here and typing in what it is. Inspiration. Okay? I want inspiration today. Well, if you want inspiration today, then I want to make sure that you find my podcast and it's here somewhere. And there it is in the top 10. I want to make sure that whatever keyword I'm playing in, you know that I've got a podcast. And that's how you're going to get a lot of downloads to your show. Okay? All right. Any other questions before we wrap it up? I want to be respectful of your time. We've gone about an hour. I hope this training was helpful. I hope you at least were inspired to get rocking and rolling with your own podcast. And if you want to get moving and do it the right way and have everything set up, send me an email, sam@everydayissaturday.com, and I will make time and we'll knock it out. So let me just see. How would I get my first audience? The first thing you got to do, Jacqueline says, how do I get my audience? Record your show. And that sounds like a simple, doesn't that sound like, wait, hold on a second. How do I get an audience? I'm telling you, I do no promotion really of my show at all, and I haven't in forever. As soon as you download, and I know we have other podcasters, I think Jeremy's on here as well. Yeah, Jeremy's getting a lot of downloads of his show, Jeremy Todd, and it is a direct correlation between you putting your content on iTunes and you getting downloads. That's the number one way I know to build your audience, is to put more shows out there. And don't be afraid to interview. You want to get more downloads. Interview a thought leader in your industry. For example, let's say you interviewed, I don't know. Let's go to fitness. Let's say you're in that niche. It's a pretty broad one, but let's just type fitness in. Okay. Let's say I wanted to build an audience in fitness, and I interview yoga. Now that's pretty cool. Yoga is a good podcast. Here we go. Why don't you contact this person who's got 1,009 reviews, does tons and tons of yoga podcasting content, and interview them and say, hey, Chaz, love the show, love the podcast. I'm a big fan. My audience would love to hear from you. Can we set up an interview? I'll interview you on my podcast. Yeah, sure. Who would turn down that? Well, of course somebody would, right? As people, I'm too busy. But anyway, yeah, I'll come on the show. Great. So you interview Chaz Ruff, who's got billions of downloads in the health and fitness about yoga, and you like to do yoga, and your show's about yoga. What do? After the podcast is done, you email Chaz and say, hey, great interview. Here's a link to our podcast. Would you mind emailing this to your followers and letting them know? Now, again, he or she doesn't have to do that, but what if they did? That's how I landed my first coaching client. A guy by the name of Dave Lacani, great man, boldapproach.com, master of persuasion. I interviewed him. I did exactly what I just told you to do. Guys, this was 10 years ago. And Dave Lacani said, wow, I just did a really great interview with a guy named Sam Crowley of Every Day is Saturday. Take a listen. And he emailed it out to his entire database. Probably, I don't even know how, his list was huge. And somebody found it. I got a bunch of people who opted into my website as a result of interviewing Dave, because it was commingling our list, so to speak. And I got my first coaching client as a result. $1,000. It works. It works. It works. It works. Okay, so interview people and then ask them to mail their list to promote your webinar. Okay, does that make sense? You don't. It's just like doing a JV mailing with somebody on their mailing list, but now you're dealing with other podcasters. Okay. So that's a great way to build your audience, is to interview people and have them mail their list about it. What about this, guys? Let me give you one other tactic here. What about going to Amazon if you want to interview authors? And let's say somebody in, I don't know. Give me a topic. What's your niche? Somebody just type in, if those of you, by the way, we still have just about everybody still on the webinar. Type in something that you want to talk about or what you think your podcast is going to be about. All right, Mitch, we'll use yours as real estate investing, okay? And let's say you want to do an interview show. Well, here you go. All of these individuals. Hey, Ken McElroy, the ABCs of real estate investing. You got a bestseller on there. Man, my audience would eat this up. Ken, would you mind coming on my show? Now, before you reach out to these people, and by the way, you can't contact them. You're going to have to go one step and go to Ken's website, contact us page, and send them an email. I get 5 emails a day from people wanting me to come on their show. All right, that's how I know they find me. They just go to the contact page. Reach out to Ken and write the email one time and remove Ken's name and put in Susie. Take Susie out and put in Mary. Take Mary out and put in Bill. Everybody in every single one of these authors, interview them, ask them to come on your show and get some great information. And then when they're done, send them the link. Who wouldn't want to promote their book on your show, right? So again, these are people, and before you send that email out, make sure you've got a podcast that they can go to iTunes, because you want to say, hey, I've got a podcast on iTunes, and they'll go there and see all of these shows. Now, you don't have to have 1,000. You can maybe have 20 or 30. And you can let them know, hey, I'm building a great following. My buddy Scott Hansen, who I trained how to podcast, 250,000 downloads in his first 10 months doing exactly what I'm talking about, and that's interviewing people, okay? Cancer reversal, right here. Let's say cancer, if it comes up. Cancer reversal. Jacqueline typed that in. Cancer The Cancer Revolution, Nature's Cancer Fighting Foods, Ketogenic Diet. All of these people, interview them on your show. Talk about what it is that you guys are passionate about. Have them mail their list about the interview that you did. Faith in the marketplace. Jesse says that. Faith. I'm not sure if faith in the marketplace is going to be a keyword. Let's just type it in. Hey, you know what? Can't hurt. I'm looking down. Market. I got to learn how to type the word marketplace. There you go. Bill Winston. Faith in and the marketplace. I'd bring Bill on my podcast tomorrow. Hey, Bill, loved your book. Holy cow, you're blowing up on Amazon. You'd be an amazing guest for my audience. Congratulations on all the success you're happening. God in the marketplace. 45 questions Fortune 500 executives ask about faith, life, and business. We walk by faith, not by sight. Look at these, Jesse. I mean, these are great guests for your podcast that you could bring on and have them mail their list after the show if they want to, but they don't have to. But what kind of connection? Do you think any of these people would have an event where they speak and they might want to ask you to come and share the stage at their event? That's happened for me as well from people that I've interviewed. The key is also using this new format, podcasting, as a way to network with people, thought leaders in your industry. And these are a lot of things I coach on with people. We don't just coach about, connect your audio to the host. It's a lot about, hey, how do I market this thing? How do I get this working? So, good stuff, though. Good stuff. Great questions. Great questions, guys. All right, we're going to wrap it up. I want to remind you, if now is the time that you want to launch your podcast and you want to get it done and you don't want to mess around and you just want boom, boom, let's get this thing on iTunes. Sam, I also want you to coach me on how to monetize this thing and market it as well as put it together. Send me an email, sam@everydayissaturday.com, and let's do it. Okay? You guys have a great rest of the day. I'm going to end the webinar now. If you have any questions, though, relative to podcasting, send me an email. Do that as well. Okay? Any way I can help. Take care, everyone. Have the best day ever. We'll see you later.